Welcome to the Open to Hope Show. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Horsley. My daughter and co-host Heidi Horsley's out of town today, but we've got a wonderful person that's going to be on, and he's going to talk a little bit about sibling loss and military loss. And he works for the Tragedy Assistance Program for survivors, and that's Bonnie Carroll's program. We've talked a lot about that, and he's got his TAP shirt on, I see, which is that program, right? And Bonnie's a wonderful person who's developed this whole great program, and Chris will talk a little bit about it. But I want to talk today about military loss and the ultimate sacrifice. And Chris lost his brother, Jeremy, was killed. And we'll have him talk a little bit about that. Tell us about your brother.
Growing up, he was a handful. He was my brother, and I loved him. But he definitely had his little peccadillos that, as a sibling, that he knew how to get on my nerves. I knew how to get on his, and that was a lot of what we shared growing up, is just kind of getting on each other's nerves. But yeah, he was very into hunting. He liked to go turkey hunting every year, deer hunting as time allowed. He usually had to take off school for that. The day he turned 17, like the exact minimum day that you can start getting recruited, he was in the recruiter's office, and he joined when he was 17, got an age waiver, and was in basic training when he was 17. In that particular tour that his unit took, he was the first one killed. There were, a lot of men that were killed, and, contractors that were associated with them. And, a lot of people saw their lives end there, but he was the first one in his group. And that was sort of, from what I understand, a rallying cry for his unit there for a while, just to kind of make sure that, they honored them the best they could. Which is kind of what we all try to do.
Right. Well, let's talk about you. I was reading some things about you, and as a sibling, one of the things you said that you were numb when you heard about it, and you didn't cry for a couple of weeks. And here you are, how many years down the road? 12 years.
Yep.
You started a movie about him.
Yeah, started it, never finished it. But
The Reservist. But what I wanted to ask you, right? The Reservist, the movie?
Yeah.
And you were in school, in college,
mm-hmm.
and you went back, I assume. And as a sibling, nobody knew your brother, right? But it was probably a pretty high profile loss.
Yeah, the school I got my my undergraduate degree from was one town over from my hometown. So,
and what's your hometown?
Jackson, Missouri.
Okay. And how big was it then?
It was about 10,000 people.
Okay. So people knew each other.
Yeah, it was a big deal. You couldn't drive up and down the roads in town without seeing memorials put up all over the place.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. And as a sibling, what have you found out as time goes on? And how did, I know you, one of the things I was reading that you mentioned was that you felt a lot of anger, and you wrote the script, but it became less angry. I was wondering about writing and your creativity.
Well, I've, as much as my brother grew up always wanting to be in the military, I grew up wanting to be a filmmaker. From the age of 8, I think I kind of decided that's not necessarily what I wanted to do for a living, but something I wanted to be a part of for the rest of my life. I was, I was looking for an outlet after my brother died. And, everybody's got their own way of doing things. And my outlet has shifted over the years, but initially it was, I need to tell this story, and tell the story the best way I knew how, which was, cinematically through film. So I sat down, and at first it was a kind of an opus on how the government had failed me, and how nobody understood, and how my dad didn't get it. He can always get a new son, and my brother's girlfriend could always get a new boyfriend. His friends could make new friends, but I could never have another brother. And like, that's what it was very, very much a pointing a finger at everybody else kind of a
You know,
story.
I love though that this process you're telling me about, because I think unfortunately sometimes siblings don't go through that process.
Right. Yeah.
That
You
they
just,
don't feel sorry for themselves. Let me
yeah.
put it that way, as deeply
Yeah. And,
as they could.
anger is one of the steps of the grieving process.
Hmm.
And you have to let yourself feel every part of that. It's not a linear process, as we know, but
So you
it,
went through the pointing finger, and then what?
yeah. And then it was I guess you could call it bargaining, because I then showed the script. It was short at that point, but I showed the script to a friend, and he was like, "Whoa, this is a bit harsh." So it became a thing where we were kind of going back and forth. He would make some changes to it. He'd send it to me. I'd make some changes. We go
That's
back
your
and
friend Blake.
my friend Blake, yeah,
Yep.
and he he was kind enough to kind of help me work through it. And in being a sounding board for the script, he was kind of also that sounding board in real life. He kind of
I
let me know
love
when
it.
I was getting too far. Um,
You
if I
know,
was getting too sad, too angry, he was
yeah,
there.
this reminds me a little bit of one of the things that Heidi always said, and she'd say if she was here, sometimes parents don't feel like their kids are talking to them enough, but sometimes they're talking to their friends.
Yeah, and I see that in my day-to-day job now. I reach out to people every single day. Sometimes just to check in, but
Mhm.
I really what I do through TAPS is make sure that people have the supports that they need, um, just to carry on, not necessarily to get over things, because you never really get over
Mhm.
things, but to kind of help you go through the day to day.
Right.
And
So let's get back to where you were. So you went from the anger, and Blake was helping you. Where did the film start moving?
oh well,
The script.
we actually started shooting the movie the summer after my brother had passed.
So it
And
was a
then,
year.
yeah, it was just under a year. We made about a week into it, and then
And now you
life
had the
happened.
townspeople starring
Yeah,
in it too,
yeah,
right? Or they were
yeah,
involved?
yep. But yeah, life happened, and we both got an opportunity to move to Nashville. I was only there for a short time to go to a film school down there,
Oh, wow.
and he continued his education there. I kind of had a moment where I was like only a year away from graduating back where I started my schooling. So I went back there and finished,
Hmm.
just because I thought it was important to finish something,
Right.
that I had to press on.
Uh-huh.
That if I couldn't get the movie done, at least I could see my degree to completion.
Uh-huh.
And that became my goal, and that's what I did. 10, 11 years past the death, 10 years of trying to make this movie. It was this all-encompassing thing that I kept trying to press for, and it wasn't getting done. It was causing me more frustration than it was worth. So in this past year, I've stepped away from it.
Uh-huh.
I may go back to it at some point. I think it's an important story that needs to be told, at least for me.
Uh-huh.
But I think it's important for me to slow down, reprioritize, and
Uh-huh.
let myself come back to it with some fresh eyes.
I'm thinking that your movie is evolving.
It may.
It's got to evolve.
I've just recently had one of those like eureka moments where I was like, this is where I was going wrong with all these years. Like I was trying to make it a movie about me and what it's like for you to lose a sibling, what it was like for me to lose Jeremy. And I was being ignorant to all these other stories that were going on at the same time. And that's kind of where my mind's at right now. Like maybe it'll be a story of how my other brother had to deal with it, how my father
Uh-huh.
made it through. Maybe some of Jeremy's friends and his battle buddies from that. Yeah.
Now
So
tell me,
maybe.
did TAPS come to your aid? Is that how you know about it?
Yes. Again, less than a year after my brother died, especially in a a small town like I was from, people, they put up the ribbons around town,
Right.
the stores put up in loving memory of, but then eventually all those ribbons came down, the signs went down. I got to a point where I started feeling like I was alone again. And I was seeking something out. I'm thinking there has to be a group out there
Mhm.
that understands.
Right.
And I came across a group of people who, I maintain some sort of contact with even to this day. But they were also involved in this organization called TAPS. So I looked into it. This was probably March of 2007. And I saw that there was a national seminar coming up in May. So I registered for it. I went to it, met a lot of the people I'd been talking to from the internet there, and met Bonnie Carroll and a lot of other people who I maintain relationships with to this day. And it's just a wonderful organization to be a part of. You finally get the sense that like there are other people out there that understand. And it's a much more open culture now with the internet. Back in
Oh yeah.
2006,
I mean,
2007, it was kind of in its infancy. And now you can find whatever group you're part of. You can find other people who think like you. It's not a problem.
right. So have your mom and dad got involved at all?
Uh, my mother has actually, she passed a few years after
Oh,
Jeremy did, which is
mhm.
not an uncommon tale. I hear it all the time.
Sorry to hear that.
One
Yeah.
one death follows another. Um, but my father has been on the outside. He hasn't gone to any seminars, but he's happy to get the magazine and the
Hmm.
emails and whatnot. He just likes knowing that it's out there, and a lot of people, that's their thing. They like knowing that it's there in case they need it.
Hmm.
Um, and he's got me, and he's got a support structure, and that's the important thing. He's got,
I'm sure he's very
you know,
proud of what you're doing.
I hope so. I know that's
Yeah.
that's obviously not my goal for doing what I do, but I
No.
hope that he is.
Tell us what your title is.
I am a survivor care team advocate. Um, I kind of look at it as if ever you go into like the emergency room at a hospital, there's the first person handles you when you come in, and they take your blood pressure and everything, your vitals, and they send you back to the doctor. I'm kind of that in a way of speaking. People will come to TAPS because they have a question about benefits. So eventually they'll need casework assistance, but before that, I'll have a conversation with them about, this is what we do. I know you're going to go to casework first, but we do all these other things, and just get to know them.
Okay,
And
how can I, if I'm watching this and I've had somebody die in the military, and actually people could have been in the military and died after. I mean, people can
correct,
come into the TAPS program, military families, they don't have to have died in active duty, right?
correct. Yeah, we get people going back as far as World War II, Korea, Vietnam,
And
going all
it's
the way up to
free, by the way. The services are free, right?
correct.
And they have wonderful camps and programs, and there are amazing things going on. And Bonnie and you guys do a fabulous family activities, and it's a wonderful organization. So tell people how to get in touch with you.
The easiest way is just to go to taps.org, taps.org. There's a lot of, I would call it literature, but there's a lot of information there as to the kinds of things that we do. But we also have a helpline that's available to people that they can call anytime, day or night.
Yeah.
And that's also listed on the website. It's an 800 number.
Fantastic. Well, all right, Chris, thank you so much for being on the show, and thank you for everything you're doing, and keep working on your movie in your mind.
Yeah, I will definitely send you tickets to the premiere when it happens. I try.
Absolutely. There's a little tickler on the internet that you can look at too.
All right, appreciate it.
Thanks again for being on the show,
All right.
and Heidi and I want to remind everybody that are watching this show that to visit us at opentohope.com. And Chris and Heidi, and I know everyone that works for Open to Hope and TAPS want to remind you that if you've lost hope, please lean on ours until you find your own, and God bless.